Welcome to the Reddit Chronicles. Today we will be reading from Malicious Compliance. Our first post is by Can3. People don't understand why you're leaving early. I was working for a smallish company, about 60 employees across several locations. IT support for both hardware, laptops, phones, and software. When I was hired, just under 9 years ago, it was verbally agreed that instead of clocking any callouts as overtime, I would just take the time in lieu. Callouts were always minimal, and there were never any issues with me taking the time here and here to make up for it. Any calls in the middle of the night were quickly resolved, and I had no problem getting back to sleep. Appointments in the middle of the day were fine because of the additional hours from whenever. This worked well for almost my entire time there. I also always started early, just depending on when I left the house, got into the office, got my coffee. Could have been anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes because I would leave the house earlier so as not to wake the family if school was off that day. I didn't care at that point. It never bothered me. They got free time from me, but again, I did not care because honestly, what else did I have to do? It was a great job until it wasn't. One weekend, I was working on some hardware maintenance, cleaning up wiring, Ethernet, plugs, installing a new UPS that took me the better part of Sunday to complete, 6 to 8 hours. This was understood, approved in advance, and appreciated. The following week, I decided to start burning those extra hours up. I still came in early, as I had done for years, but started leaving an hour early from my regular end time every day if nothing was going on. This is important. If something needed to be done, I got it done. I was reachable via email until early evening, and phone pretty much 24/7. This particular week was slow, so I had nothing going on. I left an hour early for the first 4 days. On Friday, my boss comes to me and gently says, "People notice that you've been leaving early this week. I'd like you to make sure you stay in your office until the scheduled end of day in case someone needs you." I explained to him that I was burning up lieu days, and he just reiterated that it looks bad to others. Seriously, you can't tell the others that I work my 40 hours a week, just not at the same time as them? Fine. Cue the malicious compliance. I immediately submitted 4 hours of overtime for the hours that I didn't take in lieu. I still showed up at the office at whatever time I got there, but did not start any work until 8 a.m. If asked, I would say, sure, 8 a.m. start time. If I got called outside of office hours, depending on how long I spent on the issue, I logged it as overtime. User calls me at 7 p.m. to ask a question. I answer him in 30 seconds, 1 hour OT. When my boss then started to ask, "How come you're submitting all of this overtime?" I responded with a simple, "Some people don't understand or like me taking lieu time, so I need to claim it as overtime since I am at my desk from 8 to 4. Because I wasn't available at his beck and call, it ended up costing them more money. 95% of my job could be done from home because of full remote access, but that stupid old school mentality means that people in the office need to see you at your desk all day long. I left the company very shortly after that for a much better paying job with full work from home. Know your worth." Our next post is by MD Lapla. Unnecessary meetings. Here's your expensive bill. My company works with a customer that has a factory 2.5 hours away from us. We've been working with them for years now, and we've been at the factory a couple of times at the start of the project. Everyone at the customer works at that factory. We're in charge of migrating paper trail to digital documents for a company that has like 4 warehouses full of paper trail documents. The solution has been working for some time. Last week, they asked us for a meeting. My boss said, "Okay, online, whenever you want." They said that they wanted an in-person one, that we should go to the factory. My boss didn't want to, so he said, "If we go, I'll have to bill you for the time." They said sure. So Monday morning, my boss and the tech in charge of the process head down there. The meeting lasts exactly 15 minutes. It could have been solved in exactly 2 paragraphs in one email. Since they are there, Tech asks the client to show them the paper trail warehouses and a tour of the factory. They happily comply. Overall, the meeting that could have been 15 minutes or 2 emails lasted 5 hours of travel plus 3 hours touring there, plus the food. Guess who's getting billed 16 hours of work and the food for a 15 minutes meeting? Our next post is by Dragonfire Kitten. Tell me to work when I'm not on the clock and just happen to be in the building. How about instead, I organize the staff into a low-key resistance that lasts years after I left. This will be a rather basic one, but it still warms my heart. I used to work in a trade shop run by a great boss. Everyone got along great, except for one of the department heads. Let's call them B. For reasons unrelated to this story, the boss decided to sell the shop to B, and in the wake, the majority of the staff quits within months, leaving us understaffed. I naively decided to stick it out and assumed that B would hire people to fill the empty positions. They don't. We go from a 15-person trade shop down to a 5-person within a year, and that includes the 6 people who turned over. One of the many issues that developed, and there were many, was B's inability to schedule or think through actions to the end and plan ahead. While I worked there, the 2 years with boss, I often came in 10 to 15 minutes early due to the nature of my commute. I'd come in, unload my stuff, make some coffee, small talk with my coworkers, shoot the stuff with my boss, but we never really started work until everyone's scheduled start time. When B took over, the moment you stepped into the stop, B immediately started to bark orders at you regardless if you were in the building 15 to 20 minutes early. Mostly it's because B was in a rush to get something done they just remembered. When I, the now most senior person left at the shop from the old regime, would point out we technically weren't on the clock yet for another 15 to 20 minutes and I want to make coffee, B would just snap at you, telling to do it now because so-and-so is coming right at opening. So I started to wait in my car, bring in my coffee from home, and would only walk in the door as the last minute was changing. I was technically never late to work and was ready to work the moment I stepped through the door. I don't know if B caught on, but the rest of my staff did and followed suit since I told them to. For the remaining months I lasted there, all my coworkers would still often show up early to work, but all wait in the vehicles. At some point one of them had a minivan, and we all party in there and go in as a group. Anytime a new person joined, because someone walked off, we would also warn them of what would happen. It's been several years since I worked there. I do not know any of the current staff beside B. I happened to be doing an on-site install nearby at the time that shop would open in the and looked over into the parking lot in front of the shop. Like clockwork, a minute before the shop was scheduled to open, about 6 people got out of their vehicles and headed in. I may not work there, but it's nice to see my resistance still exists. Our next post is by Meow Switch in there. Don't threaten me with a good time. A lot of lawyers are making the news with their bad decisions, which reminded me of a story I hope you enjoy. I had an appearance for a pre-trial hearing in a small town court. This hearing went okay for my client. The other attorney, opposing counsel or OC, did not react strongly positively or negatively, which made sense because the decision was basically a 60-40 split of what we were disputing. Neither of us was a big winner or loser. His demeanor changed drastically after the judge dismissed us. In the hallway, he stomped up to me while I was discussing next steps with my client and said we needed to talk. I said something along the lines of, "As soon as I'm done with client." OC huffed off and I finished my talk. To set the stage for this next part, I am almost exactly average for height weight. OC was probably 4-ish inches taller, 60-ish pounds heavier, and 30-ish years my senior. Imagine a big belly, drinker's nose, and some flop sweat if he saw the elevator was out of service. So I say goodbye to client and walked over. Without any small talk, he gave me something close to, "You think you can just walk in here and act like that?" This was confusing because nothing really went great or terrible for me or him. So I said something like, "Act like what?" This really set him off, and I pinky swear I was not trying to antagonize him with that question. OC then says, verbatim, "You better hope I never see you outside this court because I will kick the crap out of you." What he did not know was that I really enjoy fighting. After seeing the Power Rangers punch those clay soldiers, I begged my parents for karate classes. After that was judo in high school, jiu-jitsu in college, and an attempt to fight in the UFC after college. I thought I was tough right up until actual professionals hit me. Then I thought, wow, I'm actually a huge wuss, and went for a graduate degree. So I told OC, sounds good. We need to sign some forms first though. Here's my availability. Let's find a time and meet at this gym. Do you want boxing or grappling gloves? I thought for sure he would make up an excuse, but he agreed. So we set up a time and everything. The small town court gossip mill did its thing, and a couple of court staff showed up to watch the fight. In an anticlimactic turn of events, OC was a no-call, no-show. The next time OC and I appeared before the judge, who did not show up to watch the fight, the judge made a snarky comment like, "Is this really worth fighting over?" And OC didn't have anything to say to that. Thank you for listening to the Reddit Chronicles. Follow for more content.